A young worker snatched a medal from an old man's chest, causing a metallic clink that silenced them all, as they underestimated him. But 15 minutes later, when 3 servicemen marched into the store, they realized they had just disrespected a veteran. This is not fiction. This is one of the most painful and unforgettable veteran stories ever told by Justice for Veterans. And if you think this was just a minor insult, wait until minute 15. The entire store will stand at attention. Frank Hargrove, 78, lives alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of Cincinnati. No one knew he had been a U.S. Marine. No one noticed how he always entered the diner at 6 a.m. sharp, picked the same corner seat, back turned to the light. But 15 years ago, he carried a wounded friend through a hail of bullets in the Mekong Delta. And because of that, a fragment of shrapnel still rests in his left shoulder. Frank doesn't tell war stories. He hangs nothing on his walls, except on this one day each year, he quietly pins the Purple Heart on his chest. Not to show off, but to remember. An old coat, a silver medal, glinting against worn fabric. A soldier, retired, but still standing guard, just more quietly than before. Purple Heart, a violet heart. Not everyone understands its meaning. It isn't awarded for victory, but for bloodshed. Frank received his in 1970, when he unpinned a grenade lever between 2 heartbeats and shoved a fellow Marine into a dirt pit, while taking the full blast himself. Then came the hospital. Hundreds of sleepless nights, a lifetime of pain, and the silence of returning home to a country that didn't ask about the battlefield. The only thing that remained was the medal. He kept it in a wooden box, on an old bookshelf, not on the wall, no glass frame, until today, the day he chose to wear it in remembrance of those who never made it back. On the worn brown fabric, the medal shimmered. His hand trembled as he pinned it to his chest, not because of age, but because the memory was still too close. Frank pushed open the footlocker door. A chime rang. No one turned. The young clustered around displays. Trap music pounded. LED lights flickered overhead. A foreign world. He walked slowly, sidestepping people, bumped shoulders more than once, no apologies. A boy dashed past, almost knocking him over. The mother glanced, then looked away. Frank stood before the shoe rack, eyes squinting at tiny price tags. He focused on the discount section, pulled out a crumpled newspaper coupon. On the old jacket's chest, the Purple Heart gleamed under sterile white light, but no one noticed. Or if they did, they didn't understand what it meant. An old man adrift in sound and light. Unseen, unheard. No one remembered today was Memorial Day. A store clerk approached, slicked back hair, tight t-shirt, name tag, Tyler. He gave Frank a once-over, then smirked. "Looks like you walked into the wrong store, old man. This is Foot Locker, not a history museum." Frank kept calm. His hand rested gently over the medal on his chest. Tyler followed his gaze, squinting. "What's that thing? Some vintage military pin? Or a comic book badge?" Without waiting for an answer, he reached out. The store was still loud, but in that moment, between Frank and Tyler, the air froze. A hand about to touch a past it couldn't understand. Tyler smirked. Then, without permission, he yanked the medal from Frank's chest. The sound of fabric tearing, metal clattering on tile. Clink. The Purple Heart spun twice, then stopped right at Tyler's boot. A mother with a child turned away. Another employee held their breath, but no one spoke. Frank stood still, eyes locked on the fallen medal, lips pressed tight. He didn't pick it up right away, as if waiting to see if anyone still knew what it meant. Tyler shrugged. "Sorry, sir. Store policy doesn't allow strange accessories. Security reasons, you understand?" The medal lay abandoned on white tile, scratched, discarded, just like the man who wore it. Frank said nothing. He bent down, picked up the medal with both hands, as gently as if touching an old wound. No one helped. No one apologized. Just the sound of Tyler's footsteps dragging away, With a careless shrug, Frank quietly left the store, found a bench near the mall's glass railings. He sat, not angry, but deeply sad. Pulled out an old phone from his coat pocket, fingers trembling slightly. He dialed a familiar number. "James, it's Dad. Can you come?" "Don't ask, just come." An old man sitting alone in a modern world, hands clutching a scratched metal. And for the first time in years, he reached out for help. At a military base 10 miles away, Colonel James Hargrove was inspecting his formation. Boots in sync, orders sharp, the wind whipping the flag overhead. His phone vibrated in his pocket. James glanced down. "Caller ID, Dad." Before he could speak, a voice came through, calm, quiet. "Can you come? Foot Locker, Westfield Mall." Some guy yanked my medal off. Silence. Just 3 seconds. But in James's mind, 30 years of memory flooded back. His voice dropped. "Yes, sir. I'm coming. Right now." James gave a subtle nod to the 2 sergeants beside him. No explanation needed. They broke formation and headed for the military vehicle. Something had begun. No arguments. No questions. Just action. James moved swiftly through the lot. The 2 sergeants followed close. All 3 in full uniform. Nameplates, medals, epaulets gleaming in the afternoon light. They climbed in. Engine roared. James gripped the wheel, eyes fixed on the road. "What happened, Colonel?" one sergeant asked gently. James replied, eyes forward. "Someone thought a Purple Heart was a decoration. Today, he'll get a history lesson the proper way." The vehicle accelerated. The needle hit red. The mall was now less than 10 minutes away. In the back seat, one sergeant quietly opened his phone. Typed, "Prepare immediate formation protocol. Westfield Mall. Code. Honor." The mall was still buzzing. Music thumped. Shoppers moved about. Until 3 men entered through the main doors. James Hargrove in the lead. Colonel's uniform crisp, collar buttoned tight. 2 sergeants at his flanks, stepping in perfect cadence. All 3, upright as flagpoles among heads bowed by screens. No shouting, no rush. But each step seemed to pull the air out of the building. A child pointed. "Mommy, soldiers?" She hushed him. "Shh, you're looking at honor, sweetheart." James didn't glance sideways, didn't greet anyone. He walked straight toward the Foot Locker, where his father sat quietly on a bench, eyes fixed on the door. Tyler, adjusting shoe prices, looked up, locked eyes with James, and for 1 second, forgot how to breathe. James stepped in. No greetings, no nods. He stopped dead center in the store, eyes locked on Tyler, now taking a half step back, gripping the price sheet tight. "Are you the one who tore a medal off veteran Franklin Hargrove's chest?" Tyler stammered. I was just following policy." James cut in, voice deep, crisp. "There is no policy that allows the desecration of national honor, and no regulation that permits shaming a man who bled for this country." The store fell silent. Shoppers paused mid-step. An employee peeked from behind the counter. Camera recording. Tyler went pale. James took 1 step closer. "You will apologize. Here. Now. In front of every customer. And in front of my father." Tyler swallowed hard, looked toward the door, where Frank stood silently. His eyes held no anger, only a sorrow that ran bone deep. Tyler lowered his head. No more smirks. No more sarcasm. He muttered, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I shouldn't have done that." Frank didn't respond, didn't look at him. He simply held the medal tight, as if it were the last scrap of dignity left. At that moment, a middle-aged woman rushed in. Name tag read, "Regional Manager." She whispered into her phone, then turned to James. "Colonel, we are deeply sorry. This employee will be suspended immediately. A formal public apology will be issued within the hour. We've already contacted corporate." James nodded, said nothing. The entire store seemed to hold its breath, waiting for more. But he simply turned away and walked toward his father. A father and son, 2 generations of warriors on a different battlefield, walked out of the store, and the entire mall stood still, like in salute. Just before they left, the store manager approached quickly. She held a large shopping bag, bowed slightly, and handed it to Frank. "From now on, sir, every pair of shoes in our system is free to you for life, and we're sorry, truly, from the bottom of our hearts." Frank accepted the bag, silently. But for the first time, his eyes weren't sad, only tired and calm. That evening, at a small steakhouse on the corner, James sat across from his father. Both wore button-down shirts, no uniforms, no medals, just father and son. James lifted his water glass, clinked it lightly, and said, "For the first time in my life, I saw you need help. And for the first time, I got to be the one to give it." Frank gave a faint smile. His hand shook slightly as he held the glass. His voice was hoarse but steady. "I don't need much, son. Just someone to remember that I once did something right." Under soft yellow lights, 2 men sat in silence. It wasn't just dinner. It was a quiet stitching of a wound decades old. A week later, no one mentioned Tyler's name again. But in veteran forums, in VFW halls, in early morning diners, a story began to spread. An old man was insulted for wearing a Purple Heart, and his son, a colonel, came, stood tall, and reclaimed his father's honor. No one needed their names. No one needed a viral clip, but the story was told again and again, like a whispered reminder. Never judge an old man by how slowly he walks. He may have once outrun bullets to save lives. Frank never became a star, but in the hearts of those who ever wore the uniform, he became a symbol, a reminder. Honor doesn't fade with age. One photo was shared thousands of times. Frank sitting by a diner window, wearing his old brown coat, the metal glowing under the evening sun. No hashtags, no captions, just one line. "We remember." They say, never underestimate an old man in a trade that kept him alive. But it's more than that. They fought, they bled, they came home, and were forgotten in the very places they once defended. Frank didn't ask to be honored. He didn't wait for medals. All he wanted was a little respect. Because when a soldier is humiliated in public and society stays silent, it's no longer just a personal wound. It becomes a collective failure. At Justice for Veterans, we don't make stories just to move people. We tell them to remind the living that the honor of those who served is a responsibility we all share. If you've had someone in your family serve, drop their name below. Not for likes, but so together, we don't forget them a second time.